This video is sponsored by Raycon. I use analogies and metaphors in my videos a lot because they're a great way to give a basic explanation of something to people who may not have the firsthand experience to understand it innately. For example, someone once asked Reddit what it feels like to be in love, and there were various replies, many of them metaphors and analogies, like, ever been high on opiates? That's what love is like. The warm, comfortable feeling where you're just completely satisfied with life and you don't have a care in the world. The withdrawal is also just as bad as opiates. Or, I hear it's the feeling you get when you see your waiter coming with your food. Now, you may agree or disagree with these, but the point I'm making is that some concepts are hard, if not impossible, to understand if you don't experience them personally. But we still try to use language to convey those ideas to people. The problem is, because they are metaphors and not literal descriptions, they are inevitably imprecise. And that imprecision can be exploited by maybe not so noble parties for their own purposes. So for example, there's entire industries devoted to convincing people that being in love actually requires spending a lot of money on products. But it's hard to really prove them wrong to someone who doesn't have a lot of experience with love, because all of our definitions are equally imperfect. And that's kind of how I feel about the idea of Black culture. Hi, I'm T1J.
Follow me.
This video, like all my videos, would not be possible without my members and patrons, including homies like Kata, JH, Tabea, and Randy Davis. If you'd like to support the channel, you can become a homie yourself by clicking the join button below the video or by checking out my page on Patreon. Hey, let's check the voicemail.
Hi, T1J. How would you describe Black culture? Because what I can see, like, through media, Black culture isn't, like, this one specified thing anymore, you know what I mean? Like, you have people who are into anime, you have people who are into K-pop, things like that. And a follow-up question to that, is there really a point in kind of pigeonholing Black culture and by extension Black people into this one idea? I just want to get your opinion on that. Thank you. Bye.
This is actually a great question, but it's a bit hard to answer. Justin Simien, the filmmaker responsible for Dear White People and Bad Hair, once wrote, "There's a difference between Black culture and Black culture. Black culture is a malleable, nebulous, hard to define thing, kind of like love. And Black culture is kind of the metaphor that we use to make it easier to explain to people that don't experience it. And just like I said before, people often appropriate and warp this idea for their own goals, usually to make money. When attempting to explain Black culture, we can start by drawing from the various contributions of Black people to the United States. A culture can form just due to proximity or geography, or through shared interests and experiences. When we're talking about Black culture, all these things come into play, but it's still a little more complicated. Now, unfortunately, I can't give you a super in-depth explanation of Black American culture. Many very long books have been written about the subject, and I just don't have the time. I am not one of those video essayists that makes 2-hour videos. I'm not there yet. But because Black people have been historically singled out and marginalized as a separate class, we've developed things like language, art, religion, and literature that is noticeably distinct from what other American groups have developed, and that historically has been considered outside of the mainstream. This is true from the folk tales and Negro spirituals from the days of slavery, through the Harlem Renaissance of the 20s and 30s, through the civil rights and Black empowerment movements, through the birth and expansion of hip-hop, to the memes and slang from Black Twitter. Sure, there are elements and inspirations from other cultures, but the end product is something that probably would not have existed if Black people were not marginalized as a group in this country. it developed and continues to develop adjacent to the mainstream American culture. When you look at media throughout modern history that was supposed to depict American life and tell real American stories, they usually excluded and were not representative of the average experience of people who weren't white. When you're excluded from the mainstream culture, then you kind of have to make your own. Of course, as time went on, the elements of culture that were introduced by Black people became more and more integrated with the mainstream American culture. As that happens, you begin to see people who aren't Black participating in those aspects of culture, while also seeing Black people participating in aspects of other cultures. And over time, we should hopefully expect these definitions to shift, if not erode completely. But remember, as I said, this is simply an imprecise way to describe a much more complicated topic. In my view, it's still correct to label those things I mentioned as aspects of Black culture. Just because Eminem and Logic make hip-hop music doesn't mean that hip-hop isn't still a facet of Black culture and Black history. But it wouldn't be accurate to say that hip-hop or anything else is some fundamental, necessary aspect of what it means to be Black. Likewise, there's no activity that Black people can participate in that somehow disqualifies them from being active within the Black culture. Yeah, we make jokes about white people not seasoning their food or saying, well, there's my workout for the week after climbing like 2 flights of stairs. But trust me, there's a lot of Black people that can't cook. And I'm pretty sure I said that second thing myself like a couple days ago. Doesn't make us any less Black. I think the concern that the caller has is that a lot of times when we talk about Black culture, it's often rooted in assumptions and stereotypes about what it means to be Black, what Black people like, what they're good at, what they wear, how they talk. But as many people have said in the past, and as the caller implies, there are as many ways to be Black as there are Black people. However, these false standards are utilized and usually also distorted by people and organizations for their own gain, whether to sell a product or a narrative. We see cartoonish and tokenized versions of Black people in media. We see negative representation of Black people in news and politics. We see Black people eating fried chicken and drinking Sprite on commercials all the time. When's the last time you saw a Black person advertising something healthy? And the argument that some people might have is,
well, that's the culture. They're just depicting it.
But at best, it's an oversimplified idea of Black culture, and at worst, it's an intentional caricature. This has the effect of creating this very narrow idea of what Black people are like. Like, I'm sure a lot of Black people have had this experience of white people using slang around you that they wouldn't normally use, or calling you brother or sister, or trying to dap you up rather than give you a handshake. And I feel like this is just another result of this warped, unsophisticated idea of what Black people like. Just be normal, it's fine. Even worse than that, this misrepresentation of the complexity of the Black experience can lead to young Black people feeling confused about their own identities and how they think they're supposed to act. And listen, I love hip hop and I love fried chicken. The point is that Black people, like all people, are more complicated than just that. But I do get the sense that the younger generations are a little bit better at avoiding this harmful pigeonholing of Black culture. So I guess we're headed in the right direction. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to acknowledge all of the cultural contributions that Black people specifically introduced to the American story. Although every Black person is unique and has different tastes and different interests, our cultural history and our present day contributions still inform our human experiences. That's just me though. What do you think? Thank you for watching, and thank you to the sponsor of this video, Raycon. Raycon is disrupting the electronics industry by offering premium wireless earbuds at half the price as other brands. Their mission is to prioritize the customer experience from start to finish. They give you 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, and a more compact design for a comfortable, noise-isolating fit. If you're trying to take a break from screens but don't want to feel totally unplugged, Raycon wireless earbuds are the best way to bring your favorite content with you wherever you go. I use my earbuds for all kinds of things: music, podcasts, and even guided meditations. All these great features are probably why celebrities like Snoop Dogg and Melissa Etheridge are obsessed with Raycon. These things are super comfortable. I've talked before about how much I love these as a person who always hated earbuds because they were uncomfortable or they fall out all the time. These don't fall out. They come in a range of colors and patterns, and they don't have any dangling wires or goofy looking stems. On top of all of that, Raycon has a 45-day free return policy. If you're not satisfied, you can send them back. If you want to check out Raycon earbuds for yourself, just click the link in the description below or go to buyraycon.com/T1J and you'll get hooked up with 15% off your Raycon purchase. And remember, by supporting sponsors like Raycon, you not only get access to a great product, but you also support me and help me take my content to the next level.